Joining us now, the ranking member of House Natural Resources. He's Congressman Bruce Westerman, along with former CBO Director Doug Holtz-Eakin. Gentlemen, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. First to you, Congressman. President Biden now may declare a climate emergency. Critics are saying nothing screams lame duck or desperation than that. Is it an emergency, the Biden's agenda stalling?
Well, good to be with you, Liz. And it is an emergency. What's happening with inflation and with prices in our country, and energy is at the root of that. And when the word climate comes out of Biden's mouth, that basically means another attack on domestic energy. We have the energy here that we should be producing, creating American jobs. And I'm afraid another Biden climate emergency is going to mean higher prices at the pump. It's going to mean higher food costs. I was listening to the comments about the inputs into raising chicken. We grow a lot of chicken in my district in Arkansas. And even if you see nitrogen fertilizer cost increase, that translates into an increased cost in grains that go into feeding all kinds of animals. So I don't think we've seen even really the beginning of the pressure on food prices with drought, with reduction in planted lands because of input costs. There are a lot of things working in the opposite favor of lowering food costs. Energy's right there with it.
Yeah, that's true. We hear, Congressman, to what the Congressman is saying, Douglas, the White House says this, quote, the president made clear that the Senate doesn't act on his agenda. He will. You know, Senator Joe Manchin said no to more climate spending. But Douglas, 1 year ago today, the president called inflation temporary. It was just 5.4%. It has since nearly doubled to an historic 9.1%. Watch that and watch the White House new spin. Watch.
Our experts believe, and the data shows, that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary. There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way. No serious economist.
I think it has to do with the ambiguity about the length of that word. Some people hear transitory, and they're going to think weeks and months. I think the lack of specificity about the cadence that was implied by that word, the temporal cadence implied by that word, led to a level of ambiguity that wasn't serving the debate very well.
Douglas, that needs a UN translator. What is he talking about?
That's just games with words, Liz. I mean, the reality is that we could look at the data in the middle of 2021 and see that around the globe where they claim there were big supply problems, inflation had gone up by, say, 2 percentage points in Europe. And in the United States, it was already up by 6 percentage points. So, you know, it was a U.S.-grown problem. It was a policy decision they made with the American Rescue Plan, keeping the big monetary stimulus and having, quite frankly, just a flawed climate strategy, which has, you know, as the Congressman pointed out, has really had big consequences for the U.S. It's really striking. If you think back to nearly 15 years ago, 2008, last time we had a big run-up in oil prices, the U.S. was very exposed to it. Post-2010, the explosion of the North American shale revolution, suddenly when global oil prices went up, we owned the gas station, and we did just as well as the consumers were hurt. I mean, it was no longer a big deal for the U.S. And we've now undone that progress. And now we're more exposed to inflation, and we're more exposed to the threat of recession. It's two big flaws in their strategy.
Yeah, to what Douglas is saying, we see diesel going up. It looks like 76% year over year, Congressman. Gas is up 60%. That's feeding through to shipping costs, causing consumer prices to go up. So the Democrats, though, are pushing away toward culture issues. We had 17 Democrats, including Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, arrested for blocking a street at an abortion rally at the Supreme Court today. You're going to see images of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez caught on video, escorted away by police with her hands crossed behind her back. She was not in handcuffs. So she's indicating that she's looking like she was in handcuffs. She was not. But this is the thing. The White House is saying that it's up to OPEC to pump more. Biden inherited a nation that was energy independent. So you see the Democrats moving toward culture issues where it's kitchen table issues for voters. Really? That's what the polls show. What do you think?
You're exactly right, Liz. They're doing anything they can to distract American voters from the crisis that this administration and the far left has created. Instead of solving the problems, instead of looking to Texas or Alaska to solve our supply problems, why on earth would they go to Saudi Arabia in the first place? Why go negotiate with a cartel when you could be creating jobs here in America? And as far as temporary inflation, it makes me want to channel my inner Reagan to say that temporary Bidenflation is the closest thing to eternal life here on Earth. It's not temporary. It's here to stay until you make changes. We could get on a different path and start fixing the problems to lower inflation. But right now, we're headed right back to Jimmy Carter's 1970s.
Yeah, and to what the congressman is saying, when inflation hit 9% in the early 70s, Doug, it stayed there for 9 years. It gets really sticky. And you have real weekly earnings dropping 4.4%. That's worse than the Great Recession. So we want to show you now what Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg testified about electric cars and the benefits to Americans feeling the ongoing pain at the gas pump. Watch this.
Of course, the more pain we are all experiencing from the high price of gas, the more benefit there is for those who can access electric vehicles.
Okay, the average electric car costs more than the average American family. And by the way, electric cars are powered by the power grid, which is 80% powered by fossil fuels.
Yeah, this has never really hung together as an argument. I mean, they've got an incredibly, really risky climate strategy that says we're going to have the cleanest electricity generation ever, just solar and renewables, and then we're going to transport it across a grid that's never existed, and we're going to power every vehicle, every home, and every factory in America with that. It's not a realistic strategy, even as a climate strategy, and it's led to this exposure on the oil and natural gas front. It's a terrible policy misstep, and it's really changing the subject, because if you look in the data, and they seem to not want to talk about this, you can take something like rents or homeowner costs, shelter costs, and they are up from 1% to almost 6%. They have shown no sign of going down. They're steadily going up. There's no supply chain there. There's no invasion of Ukraine in a house. There are none of the things they want to distract and change the subject about. That's just policy errors causing inflation. And if you look at food, energy, and shelter, that's 50% of the American budget, and it's going up at 11% a year. Those are the problems.
And it gets to be the danger zone when late night comedy is weighing in. Watch this.
I read that Dr. Fauci said that he plans to retire by the end of President Biden's term. Yeah, then everyone turned to Biden like, is there anything you'd like to announce, too?
Have you noticed that Biden's got a little feistier lately? Because when he first came out, he was like a soothing grandpa offering you butterscotch from his coin purse. Right?
Prices of gas are so high that these days driving is the entire date. It's just like, he really spoiled me last night. We drove all the way from my house to the end of the block. Ow. He's so romantic.
Okay, that's funny stuff. Your final word, Congressman.
Well, that is funny, but you see the late night comedians turning against this president and this administration, just like the polling shows basically everybody is. I saw a poll that showed over 90% of Americans are concerned about high food costs and high energy costs, and this administration just keeps doubling down on bad policy.
Got it.
I was in that hearing in the T&I committee with Secretary Buttigieg, and it's bad environmental policy, the way they're pushing for electric vehicles so much. At the same time they're pushing for these vehicles, they're closing down mines in the United States where we produce the elements and minerals that go into them.
Interesting.
So there's no strategy or cohesiveness to their policy.
Got it. Congressman Westerman and Doug Holtz-Eakin, a pleasure having you both on. Come back soon.